Let's look at our basic outline of the website that we're trying to create within this course. So we've got our regular view here on the left-hand side and our mobile view on the right-hand side. Now I'm going to open up the editor and we're going to start creating our HTML structure in order to build out this website. And I've got my quick preview here on the right-hand side. So initially you're probably not going to see much coming out of that HTML because we're going to essentially build out that structure with the elements. We're going to start with a header. So this is going to be our main header area and we're going to give it an ID of header. So this is just in case we decide to use header again so that we can identify it within our HTML, within our CSS. And then within this header, I want to have two separate sections. The first section is going to be the logo area. So this is just going to be a regular div, and I'm going to give it an ID of logo. And we'll just close that off, and maybe we can put company name or something like that there just to hold that place. And then next, I want to set up the navigation bar. So this is going to be our main Navbar, and I'm going to give it an ID of Navbar. And these are just ways that I can identify it within my CSS. So that's why I'm giving them IDs there. We may or may not need them as needed, but I like to have it within my main structure of my website to be able to easily identify the different elements that are available. So within the Navbar, typically when we're designing navigation menus, we do them as unordered lists, and this presents the list of navigation items really neatly as list items. So I can create my first one here, and this will be href, and I'm just going to leave it as a blank href right now, or maybe I can place in index.html so that we have that in place. Close that off and just type in home, and I'm going to just copy and paste this. So typically for websites we're going to have maybe 4 different items here in the menu. So the next one we could do an about me section, so just call it about, and we're going to create an about.html page. After we finish out the template and do our styling, that's when I'm going to add in these additional pages. And the reason being is that I have to plan out how I'm attaching the CSS first, and this is why I'm going to do the copying and pasting of that HTML structure in the other pages at the end after I've done my styling. So this one could be for products, and I'm going to just call this page products.html, and then lastly, every web page needs to have a contact form. So we need to have a way to get a hold of the website owner if they want to place an order or something like that, so that we have a way that the owner of the website can be contacted. So that's what our website looks like right now. So it doesn't really look exactly like a website, but we are going to be building this out, and when we apply that styling, it's really magically going to all come together. So the next thing within our plan, when we're looking at our plan, so we've got the 2 sections here that we've just created. We created this logo area, we created the nav bar, the navigation area. So that's it for the head section of our website. And then next is this intro welcome message type section container area, and this we're going to do it as just a div. We could do it as a section as well, so maybe we can do it as a section or a div. And remember, this is only going to be present when on the intro page, so I'm going to give it an ID and I'm going to call it welcome so that we can easily identify it, and welcome to my website. And we're not going to display this on the other pages, it's just going to be on the index page again. So next we got to look at a container area. So we can do this as a section if we want, or we can do it as a div.
And if you're not familiar with HTML5, what happened with HTML5, initially when we were building out websites, we would create them all as divs, and we'd give them these IDs like header, navbar, and they'd all be divs, and essentially they take up that full block of available code. But what happened when HTML5 came along is that they decided to bring everything together and have it within one container area. So have it as named semantics instead of divs. So it would just make more sense when you're looking at the code. So instead of divs, we changed them to headers, and eventually right now they're functioning the same way as it would with divs. So they are interchangeable, but best practice is usually to go with the HTML5 semantic elements. So this one is going to be section, and I'm going to give it a class of container. And close that off, and then within that container I'm going to have two separate sections. So I'm going to have a main section for the content, so section, and I'm going to give this one a class of content, or you could call it main or something like that. And then beside it I have a side, and a side is the element that we use, or the tag that we use for side menu. So this would just be side menu or sidebar, and maybe we can give this one a class as well. Side, so we'll just give it a class of side menu. So that takes care of the next section, and then lastly what we need to do is create a footer. So it's one of the things when you have brackets doing the self-closing of the tags, it writes a little bit quicker, but sometimes if you press that closing of that tag too quickly, then it creates one that you're not trying to create. So that's what just happened there. So I'm going to give this one an ID of footer, and then here we're going to put company copyright 2016 or something like that. And we can do the copyright symbol, so add that in. So now let's go quickly take a look at and see what this looks like. So when I refresh the screen here, so that's one of the things here with brackets as well, that I'm adding it in, and as I'm adding in and updating, it's just updating the next piece, so it's not actually refreshing the content. So that's why I ended up with a whole line of these repeated pieces of code. So maybe I need to add in some additional content here so that I know this is content about the site. Side menu I have, navigation. So I do have some placeholder information for every piece, for every element, for every one of my main elements within my website. So we're ready to go with the next step and start really building out this website and presenting it and making it actually look more like a website. And also there's a few things here that you might have noticed that while I was building these out. So I started with IDs, I've got IDs here, and I've got classes. So if you're familiar with CSS, then you know that IDs are for unique elements and classes are for reusable elements. And one of the classes here, so whenever we're using Bootstrap, it already has some pre-built classes within it. So I have used classes down here, and I use this one container, and this is actually a Bootstrap class, so it's already a predefined class in Bootstrap. So when I open up Bootstrap here under containers, we see that we already have a class container, and essentially this is what allows us to create a responsive fixed width container, and then within here is where we could create some rows and columns. And this is going to be useful when I want to apply some of my Bootstrap
content within that main content area, and that's why I've given it a class of container. And of course, classes we can reuse as many times as we want, and this is the same thing here for the content, because if I want to have multiple sections, I might want to have different content styling, and I might want to reuse that styling in different parts of the website. So this is where I've used a class, and then also for the side menu I've used a class. So these IDs I know I don't want to reuse anywhere else within the website, and that's why I've stuck them as IDs, because I've predefined them and I'm setting them up just as IDs. So they're only going to be in one element within the page, but I might be using these classes multiple times, and that's why there's the difference. And then of course, because I'm going to be adding Bootstrap, I'm using some of the predefined Bootstrap classes. So in the next lesson, we're going to add in Bootstrap, and we're going to add in some additional tweaks to this website content in order to present it a little bit more better, make it look more like an actual web page. So we're going to place some placeholder content in there. So that's all coming up in the next set of lessons.